Do you want to burn your tires till they pop? The best way to do that is install a line lock.
Let's get started.
Let's take a look at some of the parts and tools we have to install your line lock. We have our line lock here. The link for that is in the description below. Some adapter fittings to adapt our 1/8 MPT and our line lock to inverted flare. Got some unions and a T fitting, some tube nuts. We also got some tube. We got about 4 feet of tube here. It's 6 feet, bro. Oh, 6 feet of tube. No, I think it's 5 feet. Not that short. Some of the tools we will use to build our brake lines. We have a tube cutter, a tube bender, a deburring tool, and an inverted flaring tool. First, you want to analyze how your brake system is set up. We have our 2 lines right here coming from our master cylinder that go into the top of our proportional valve back here and up here. There's a line in the back that goes to our rear, and then we've got this one that comes out and goes to our front left, and this one that comes out and goes to our front right. Now let's go to our directions and compare to the diagrams they have. Ours most resembles configuration number 2, and we are installing on our front brakes right here. It does help to have your engine removed when you're installing your line lock. As bad as I want to get that thing in here already. To get all the parts we needed, we laid out our diagram on our whiteboard. We put our major components on here: a proportioning valve, our line lock, and then our front left and front right outputs. From there, we connected them with the fittings that we needed. A lot of these are A, which is our 3/16 inverted flare fitting, male, used with our 3/16 tube. However, we also needed to get some adapters for our line lock, a T, a plug, and then a union in order to make it a little easier to splice into our current brake lines. Now you might be thinking, what does this look like in the engine compartment? Well, let me show you. This bottom line, we're going to disconnect and plug. This top line, we're going to disconnect. We're going to add 2 unions here, our T right here, install our line lock solenoid up here, run this top to our solenoid and back down to our T, which is connected to our front brakes. And that's enough explaining. Let's get to it. We're going to do this bottom one first because we're just going to plug it. There it goes. Alright, we're taking this top one off to get working on the T. I think that's it. Yep. Removing this bolt that's holding our brake line in. We have a little more flexibility, pun intended. There we go. Ready?
So after jumping in here and bending some of this tubing, we realized our plan was pretty intricate and that there was a much more simple way to execute what we were trying to do, and you will see us execute that and adapt from our plan here.
I think so, and then we'll point it this way. Yeah, sure. You can't invert, flare, or curve. You gotta go straight. So yeah, right. I think right where you have it, I think is gonna be good. This is going to be really the interesting part right here.
We adapted from our plan and found that we could bend our tubing coming from our front right upwards and splice in the tubing coming from our front left into a T.
Deburr.
From there, we could connect our T to our line lock.
Before we get too far. Oh, this is going to be so interesting. Tight spot here.
Thank you, Jake. I almost forgot to add that fitting before I did my flare.
Just trying to get more and more tools down here, Jake Roy. Yeesh. Gotta come backwards. I'm just going to try pulling this out. Oh, you know what? We got another nut here we can take off. This will help us out quite a bit. Can do it. You didn't read the directions? That looks pretty good. A nice little bubble. Wow. A nice little bubble there. Yeah, done yet? Tea on there? Yeah. Clear one. You might need to twist. I'm gonna have to get twisted a little bit because this needs to be lined up with that. Yeah.
So we have our flare fitting coming from our front right to our T, and now we're lining up so that we can do our flare fitting to our front left and connect that.
This is what will be interesting now. It's almost like we need to bend it this way. Now I bend it back. What do you mean? You can't. How do you get dirt in something that's super freaking clean?
So we're getting this T put together. The next step is going to be figuring out exactly where we want to put that line lock and getting everything plumbed in.
Alright, I'm back here in the Roy garage working on this line lock. I put my fender back in place to try to get an idea of where I would want to install this line lock device. Originally I was looking up here. Now I'm actually looking at installing it on the firewall tucked up in here. I like that because it's close to all my brake system and I won't have to worry about my steering or my shifter getting in the way.
And on the right side, I can put the brake sensor. The top hole is where it goes in from our brake system, and then the bottom hole is to our T and front brakes, and then this hole on this side would get plugged. The brake system on the El Camino is run by a switch on the brake pedal, but since we're installing this line lock, there will be times where the front brakes are locked and we don't have our foot on the brake pedal, so we've got to install this switch. Right now we're spacing things up to make sure that this is a good fit. And it looks like it's a good fit, so time to remove this fender, start install.
Alright, since this hole is where this is going to end up, I'm going to permanently install it, and before I do that, we've got to add some Teflon. Nice and tight. There we go.
Now we plug the hole on the opposite side.
Alright. Always inspect everything as we install, especially after we bleed our brakes for any potential leaks. A weird angle. Let's see if this will work. Whoa! I'll get us started. Tip: get yourself some good self-tapping screws when you install this bad boy. Let's try to get this screwed in on the opposite side. The biggest learning lesson from this install is going to be making sure you plan your spacing. There we go. Enough space for making your lines. Doing your flares. Oh yeah, that's not going anywhere. Cool. All right, we've got our line lock installed here. Next step is going to be running hose from here to here. That's going to be the shortest, probably most complex to try to get it from there to there. And then next step is going to be running the main line in from right there, that hole there, all the way up to this top. And I've got this wire here to try to help me get a good idea what I need to do. And then it's got to go like that. It's pretty short. Make sure that it's straight coming out of here and straight going in there. See what we can do. And I've got this pre-made line here with 2 fittings and 2 flares on either end. So I'm going to cut this and start bending. Then I got to make sure I put one of these fittings on and make the flare. All right, after going back and forth, I think I've got this line, hoping I got enough room to cut and make a inverted flare right there. We're gonna make it as short as we can and see if this will work. Cross our fingers. Forgot to press record on that time lapse, but cut and made this flare. Let's go test it out, see if it fits. Come on. It's close. Wait, this won't go in here. That's right. I need to put an adapter here. Shoot! Let's get that adapter on. 1/8 NPT to 3/16 inverted flare. Now for the moment of truth. Kind of close. Maybe if we get some threads, we can make it work. Let's give it a shot. Oh, is that some threads? I think that's some threads right there. That's all it needed, guys, was just a little tweak, a little bend up. Now we caught some threads. Now let's see how well we can get these tightened without the line wanting to twist too much. Flare fitting so that it just gets smashed up in there. So you pretty much just want to get them as tight as you can. So I didn't get my door shut all the way. Alright, go with that. Oh geez. Yeah, those are starting to bend. Oofda. Okay, those are starting to crimp a little bit too. Boom shakalaka. Alrighty guys. Now we just have the last line going from here down to our proportion valve. Try to get it so you can see it at least. And then, if you watch this far, you know there's still one more fitting that we got to put on this. And it's on the bottom here. I got the wrong one, but I got the right one today. So I'll be able to block that off. That's as tight as I'm going to be able to get that. Cool. This way. It's upside down. It's the opposite when it's upside down. Okay, that plugs me out of brass too, so I don't want to. Okay. Try that. See if that does it.
All right, let's review what we've done here. We plugged up our bottom hole, which used to go to our front right. We've got a line going from our used to front left up to our solenoid. And then we've got our brake sensor attached on the far side there. And a line going to our T coming out of our solenoid, going to our front left and our front right. We made our plan, obviously I had to deviate from it, but sometimes that's just how it goes. I do want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Roy Garage. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss out on next week's episode when we wire this lock line up. And don't forget, if you enjoy the Meano Camino and want to see everything we've done to it, click that playlist in the upper left corner.
She clicks, baby. Let's go.